The room felt too small, while everything started to fail at once. Screens flashed red across the wall. Phones rang. People talked over one another. I, Emily Carter, watched the dashboards that I helped build fill with warnings like rising water during a storm. Shipments paused. Numbers froze. The air felt tight in my chest as alarms popped up again and again. I heard someone say that headquarters was already calling. Another said clients were on hold and angry. I had known this could happen, but no one wanted to listen earlier. Now it was live and it was real. Leaders walked quickly through the hall. Some whispered. Some tried to look calm. I sat still at my desk and kept my eyes on the data. The pattern was clear to me. It matched the risk I had written about months before. What scared me was not the error. What scared me was how fast it spread. The new system had gone live that morning. The branch was proud. The manager, Mr. Thompson, had smiled for photos. By afternoon, the pride was gone. Even the printers sounded nervous. Something important was breaking, and it was breaking everywhere at once. And this was only the beginning. Senior executives joined by video from headquarters, and their voices filled the room. One asked the question everyone feared. Who signed off on this? Who led this project? My branch manager, Mr. Thompson, spoke before anyone else could answer. He stood straight and said that he had led everything from design to launch. His tone was proud, but I saw his hand shake when he touched the table. He kept talking about speed, vision, and bold change. They praised him at first, but their praise turned cold when new alerts appeared. Charts fell. Orders stuck in queues. One executive asked why basic controls were missing. Another asked why backup paths did not activate. My manager's smile became thin and wrong. He said the problems were small. He said the older tools were slow and in the way. He blamed vendors. He blamed old habits. He blamed anyone but himself. I stayed quiet and watched. Every question they asked pointed directly at the parts he had changed on his own. I remembered the meeting when he said my safety checks made him look slow. I remembered when he deleted my notes. Now he stood in front of the same people and claimed that everything was his. Soon they would learn what that meant. The truth had started months earlier when no one wanted my idea. The branch numbers were sliding every quarter. Delays grew. Clients grew tired of excuses. I had worked there for years and saw where the real problems lived. They hid inside old systems that did not talk to each other and rules that made simple things hard. I built a small model at home on my laptop at night. It showed how the work could move faster and safer at the same time. When I first shared it, no one cared. People said it was not my job. Some said that change took too much time. I kept testing anyway. I fixed errors. I made it easier to use. Quietly, the model began to work. A pilot team tried it and saw that shipments moved smoother. For the first time in months, we hit targets. Then, people started asking questions. Who built this? Where did it come from? They were surprised the answer was me. I felt proud, but I also felt careful. I wrote everything down. I kept copies. I knew how success in our branch often invited the wrong kind of attention. I just did not know how far that attention would go. Those months were long and quiet. I arrived early and stayed late. The cleaning crew learned my name before leadership did. The lights in the office felt different after dark. I worked in a corner with my headphones in and my notebook open beside me. I tested every part of the system, not just what made us look fast, but what kept us safe. I added warnings, backups, and clear records for every action. Most people saw only the surface. They admired the clean screen and simple buttons. They did not see the layers underneath that guarded the work. I cared about those layers the most. I knew mistakes always come, and systems must assume that someone someday will try to rush. I was tired, but it was a good kind of tired. My hands ached from typing. My eyes burned. Yet each piece that finally worked gave me strength again. I never thought this system would be a weapon. I thought it would help people do their jobs without fear. I believed care mattered. I believed proof mattered. I believed that if I worked hard and did right, the truth would stand by itself. I was wrong about how soon that truth would be tested. The branch manager, Mr. Thompson, noticed only when others noticed. Before that, he had smiled at me in halls and barely listened when I spoke. After the pilot's success, he started asking me to walk him through the model. His voice sounded light each time, but his eyes stayed sharp. He asked how the reports were built. He asked how I set the logs. He asked how the alerts worked. I thought he finally cared about the work. I explained everything slowly and clearly. He nodded often and told me that headquarters liked bold people. He said I should let him carry the message upward since he had the right relationships. He spoke of positioning and visibility and how the branch needed one face. I did not understand what that meant for me until much later. To me, the project was about the team and the company. To him, it was about himself. He began to attend meetings that I was not invited to. He asked for my slides, my notes, and my drafts of proposals. He said he needed them for pre-reads. I sent them, trusting that credit was natural. I learned that trust without proof can vanish in silence. The first time I saw my name missing, it felt like the floor moved. The project report sat on the shared drive. I opened it to check numbers. At the top of the file, the author line no longer held my name. His did. My sections were still there, every line I had written, every chart I had made, but my name had been erased like chalk on a board. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I searched the slides for the appendix, where contributors were listed. That list was gone. A new slide had appeared about vision, and it showed his photo beside shiny words. My chest grew warm, then cold. I scrolled through change history and saw edits done late at night. My name was removed again and again in quiet steps. None of those edits were mine. I sat there for a long moment without moving. Around me, the office went on as normal. Printers clicked. Phones rang. It was strange how normal life stayed while something important broke inside me. I took a breath. Then I began saving copies. I downloaded logs. I placed files in a private folder with dates and messages. I did not shout. I did not cry. I chose to see instead. The talk happened behind a closed door with a fake smile on his face. I asked simply why my name was missing. Mr. Thompson laughed, first like it was small. He said leaders own teamwork. He said details about credit were not strategic. I told him that authorship mattered and that our branch policy asked for it. His smile faded. He leaned back and said I worked too slow, that my focus on safeguards made me look like I lacked courage. He said people like me were support, not leadership material. He called his changes polish. He called my controls drag. Each word landed heavy but clear. There was no mistake anymore. He had taken my work on purpose and planned to stand alone in front of headquarters. I asked him to restore my name. He said it would confuse people. He said the story had already been shaped. I left the room without raising my voice. I felt hurt. Yes, but something else formed under the hurt. It was not anger that burned. It was something steady and cool. I understood him now. I understood the rules he wanted to play by. I chose different rules. That was the day I chose silence but not surrender. I went back to my desk and opened a blank document. I wrote everything. Dates, emails, versions. Who said what? Who changed what? I saved screenshots and stamped them with time. I placed them in more than one place. It was not about revenge. It was about truth. If the day ever came when truth was needed, I would not argue. I would simply show it. Inside, the shock turned into clarity. I realized I did not have to rush. He had already rushed for both of us. I only needed to keep doing my job well and let time move. The system would launch. The choices he made would meet reality. Reality does not play favorites. I also chose something else. I chose professionalism. I still sent reports on time. I still helped my team. I answered questions and trained new staff even when Mr. Thompson tried to keep me out of meetings. I did not gossip. I did not try to make him look bad. I did not need to. The seeds had already been planted. I only had to watch them grow. Presentation day came with bright lights and forced smiles. Headquarters joined on big screens in the main room. I watched from the back while Mr. Thompson stood center stage. He spoke like a hero from a story he had written about himself. He talked about daring change and brave leadership. My diagrams filled the screen. My process maps. My design steps. My test cases. Only my name was missing. People clapped when he finished. Questions came fast. He answered smoothly, but I heard small cracks in his words. He skipped the deeper parts. He moved past risk, slides, quickly. When asked about certain controls, he said they slowed the new spirit of the branch. He called them old thinking. He promised speed, boldness, and numbers that sparkled. Leaders smiled. Approval followed. I felt two things at once. Pain, because my work had been taken from me in public. Fear, because I knew what had been removed to make him look fast. The project was approved for launch across our operations. I wrote the launch date in my notebook and drew a small circle around it. I knew the road ahead. It was no longer smooth. It had holes that someone had dug on purpose. He went further after that day. Mr. Thompson called meetings without inviting me and ordered parts of the system changed. He took out safety checks that asked users to pause and confirm. He shortened review steps that caught simple mistakes before they spread. He said people complained about clicks and warnings. He said leaders liked clean screens. I argued once in an email, carefully and calmly. He replied with one line, "Do not slow us down." Pieces that mattered vanished. He said backup queues made us look unsure. He said logs were too detailed. He removed alerts that would have warned us early when numbers drifted. All of these were small in his eyes, but systems fall through small holes, not big ones. I documented every change and kept the old version safe. He liked how the dashboards looked now. They showed speed in big easy graphs. He said color mattered more than text. I watched him celebrate a picture of success while he quietly cut the ropes that held that picture to the wall. It would be beautiful until it fell. The worst part was knowing exactly how and when it would fall and being unable to stop it. When headquarters approved the launch, the room filled with applause. Mr. Thompson shook hands and smiled so wide that it looked painful. People took photos. Messages went out across branches. I stood near the wall and listened. My happiness was careful. The idea itself still had value. The design still worked. The danger came not from the idea, but from the parts removed to make it look fast. During the meeting, one senior leader asked one last question. He wanted to know if risk had been fully modeled. Mr. Thompson said, yes, without looking at the files. I noticed how he avoided my eyes. I also noticed small signs that only builders see. I saw mismatched version numbers on slides. I saw incomplete tables in the appendix. Those were not accidents. Those were pieces edited for show. On the bus ride home that night, I held the rail and watched the city move past the window. I whispered the same sentence inside my head again and again. It is only a matter of time. That thought did not make me smile. It made me prepare. I checked my records again that evening. Everything was in place for the day when someone finally asked for the truth. The countdown began the morning the system went live across all sites. At first, it looked perfect. Numbers jumped. Work moved fast. People sent excited messages about how simple everything felt. Leaders bragged about early results. Mr. Thompson walked around the floor like a winner at a parade. He patted backs and spoke about the future. But speed has a price when it is built on missing parts. I saw the first odd sign in the data that afternoon. A small mismatch appeared between orders and stock. It corrected itself in the display, but logs quietly marked the gap. No one noticed because some logs had been turned off. I noticed because I knew where to look. Over the next days, Small irregularities grew, like cracks in ice. Numbers shook then settled. Delays appeared then vanished from the main screen, even though they stayed in reality. People called support with strange questions. Things that should not be possible began to happen in tiny ways. Each time, Mr. Thompson called them teething problems and told us to focus on wins. He told teams not to slow down with reports. He said the system was learning. What I saw instead was a system trying to warn us without a voice. The first real break arrived one Friday afternoon when the floor was already tired. A large client waited for a shipment. The system showed complete. The warehouse showed empty. Two truths stood side by side, and both could not live together. Phones rang so often that it sounded like rain. I opened deeper logs that most people did not even know existed. There it was, the failure pattern I had written about months earlier. Transactions were passing without full checks. When one failed in the middle, the screen still marked it as done. The missing safeguard would have caught it. The removed backup would have held it. Neither stood anymore. The result was a tangle of wrong data that could not fix itself. I sent a detailed note about what I found. The reply came fast. Mr. Thompson said it was a warehouse error and told me to leave it alone. But the pattern spread. By evening, 3 clients called. By night, the red marks on my private dashboard looked like a storm map. I sat in my kitchen with the laptop open and the light off. I watched the numbers move and felt that quiet fear again. This was not a blip. This was the start of collapse. The following week, denial became policy. Each problem was given a soft name. Temporary glitch. Vendor sync delay. Legacy data shadow. The words were light, but the damage was heavy. Staff were told not to alarm leadership with detail. Calls grew longer. People stayed late. I heard anger in voices that were once calm. I tried again to explain in simple language what was happening. I wrote about steps that had been removed and why those steps mattered. The answer came back with sharp edges. I was told I was negative and stuck in old thinking. Mr. Thompson held short meetings where he smiled too much and said that we were winning and that complaints were signs of resistance. Some teams began to worry quietly. They came to my desk in ones and twos and asked what I really thought. I spoke carefully and told the truth without drama. The system could be saved, but only if we stopped pretending. They nodded, but they also looked scared. They knew how our manager treated people who questioned him. Denial is loud at first. Then it becomes thin and tired. By the end of that week, even denial sounded weak. The day everything broke started like any other. By noon, nothing was normal. Transactions stacked up in frozen queues. Delivery trucks waited without routes. Screens showed success while reality showed failure. A partner called and demanded answers in strong words. Money and trust both began to leak away. Rooms filled fast. People spoke in short sentences. I watched as whole pieces of operation stopped at once, like lights going out across a map. The missing controls had allowed wrong data to spread everywhere, and now no one could tell which number to believe. You cannot steer a ship when all your compasses lie. Even Mr. Thompson's face changed. His cheer was gone. He walked fast from desk to desk, asking for updates he could not understand. He blamed the old system for not being there anymore. He blamed vendors again. He told people to just push it through though nothing would move. I felt strangely calm in the middle of the storm. I had seen this path before in my notes. Every step had come true. It did not make me happy. It just made me ready. I closed my eyes for 1 second, opened them again, and waited for the next call. I knew exactly who would make it. Blame began to fly like paper in wind. Mr. Thompson called junior staff into small rooms and left them there in tears. He told one team that they had trained wrong. He told another that they had entered data badly. He said the warehouse had not kept up. He said the old branch culture resisted change. He never said he had removed anything. People stopped meeting his eyes. Some went silent when he walked into the room. He raised his voice more often. He said we needed more spirit and less process talk. Meanwhile, the numbers kept falling. Clients sent formal letters. Headquarters asked for hourly updates. The problem had outgrown our branch. It was now a company problem. In chat groups, I saw my own diagrams being passed around without my name. I also saw confusion. People asked where the original plans were. They asked who built the base. Mr. Thompson answered those messages himself. He said he had let it all and was already fixing it. He promised a solution call with the board the next morning. He did not know that most of the pieces he needed to explain were the ones he had erased. He did not know that the truth had been waiting patiently, as quiet as I had been. They called for an emergency boardroom meeting the next day. I was not invited. I watched people rush past my desk toward the glass doors at the end of the hall. The air in that part of the office always felt different, but now it felt heavier. Screens outside the room showed red indicators like open wounds. Someone said that losses were already counted by the minute. Inside, the highest leaders joined on screens from different cities. Mr. Thompson sat at the long table with a stack of notes that did not help him. I stayed at my station and kept working on tickets because someone still had to help customers in real time. Now and then I heard parts of voices through the open door when someone walked out. Words like accountability, exposure, and immediate plan reached me in short pieces. I imagined the questions they were asking. I also imagined the answers he could not give. It was strange to sit so close to that room after months of silence. I had built the heart of what they were talking about, yet my name had never reached that table. I checked my folder again. Everything was still there. Every log, every design, every change stamped in time. I knew my turn would come. Later that hour, the door opened wider and a voice rose inside the room. Mr. Thompson was speaking faster than normal. Even from where I sat, I heard strain. They asked him deeper questions, not about slogans, but about how the system actually worked. They asked why certain controls were gone. They asked how rollback was designed. He began to drown in detail. He gave long answers that missed the point. He tried to move back to easy slides. He said things like holistic view and agile flow that did not fix broken trucks on real roads. The board wanted facts. He had none that matched. He tapped his pen again and again. Papers shook in his hands. I finally saw what fear looked like on him. It was not loud. It was hollow. Someone in the room must have suggested bringing in the original builder because the talking stopped for a moment. Then I heard the question through the open space. Who really built this? The silence after that question felt like a cliff. Mr. Thompson did not answer right away. He knew the name he did not want to say, the name he had erased. And he knew I was sitting only a few steps away. Voices dropped to private tones. Chairs moved. The meeting paused. Soon, one of the assistants came to my desk and asked me to come in. Her face told me everything before she spoke. I closed my laptop slowly and stood. My hands did not shake. Months of silence had made me still inside. I walked down the hall past people who stopped typing to watch. Mr. Thompson saw me at the door and lost color in his face. That moment was not joy for me. It was truth arriving exactly on time. They asked me to sit. The board chair spoke with respect and asked if I was the designer of the core system. I answered yes, not with pride or anger, just yes. They asked why my name had not been visible in the project files. I said I could explain best by showing, not arguing. They nodded. Mr. Thompson started to speak, but they held up a hand. He fell quiet. The line of power in the room changed in that small gesture. For the first time, they were not looking at him. They were looking at me. I stayed calm. I asked for a laptop connected to the main display and access to the live data instead of slides. They agreed at once. When the dashboard came up, I felt like I was returning to a room I had built myself. I spoke in simple words because clarity was my only goal. First, I showed what the system was meant to do. Then I showed the parts that were missing. I did not raise my voice. I did not look at the manager. I looked only at the facts. I opened logs that proved when guards were removed. I opened message threads where I warned of risks. My notes had dates, and dates tell stories that words alone cannot erase. The boardroom grew very quiet. Questions came, but now they were different. They were focused and respectful. Each answer led to the same point. The failure was not the idea. The failure was the choice to cut safety for show. Mr. Thompson tried to interrupt once. He said I misunderstood his direction. I answered by showing his own edits on the screen. There was nothing left for him to claim. Truth had taken the room. When chaos surrounds you, calm becomes power. I felt it then. I did not need to gloat. I only needed to work. I told them we could still save most of the damage if we acted with discipline. I asked for full access and no more cosmetic changes. They granted both at once. I pulled up the real-time cues and explained what each color meant in simple language. I showed which data was dirty and which was clean. I described the steps to freeze wrong paths before fixing them, so we did not make things worse. People leaned forward, not because I was dramatic, but because clarity itself draws people in when the world is shaking. I gave short instructions to the tech team on the call. They listened without doubt. We rebuilt a backup route live. We restored a safety layer Mr. Thompson had deleted. One by one, warnings on the wall screen turned from red to yellow and then to steady green. The room breathed again. My hands moved across the keyboard the same way they had late at night months before. Only now, everyone saw whose hands they were. Once the system was stable, they asked me to explain exactly what had happened. I opened my records and took them through the story like steps on a path. I showed the original design with complete controls. I showed Mr. Thompson's edits removing checks and backup routes. I showed the presentation slides where his name had replaced mine. Nothing I shared was opinion. Everything was recorded. The board members looked at each other and then at him. No one raised their voice. They did not need to. Evidence spoke louder than any anger could. I explained calmly why each removed safeguard mattered. I told them how risk is invisible until it is not, and how pride can be a sharp tool when used wrong. He tried one last time to say he had only tried to be bold. The chair asked him why he had erased my name. He could not answer. He opened his mouth, closed it, and looked down at the table. For months, I had carried this inside without speaking. Now it was out in the open, clear and simple. I did not feel revenge. I felt relief. The truth was standing on its own feet at last. They asked me what needed to happen next. I said the first goal was to make sure nothing like this could happen again. I recommended restoring all original controls and adding stronger audit trails so that names on work could not be erased without trace. They agreed. Then we focused on the real world outside the room. Customers still waited. Trucks still stood idle. I led the steps to unwind wrong data and rebuild the correct flow. Teams from other branches joined the call. I guided them through the fix one screen at a time. The plan worked because it had been tested long ago in my notes that Mr. Thompson had never read. Hours passed without my noticing. When the final queue cleared and the last alert turned green, a quiet came over me. We had saved what mattered most. Not pride, not titles, the work, the people who depended on us. One of the board members thanked me formally. Another asked why I had stayed silent for so long. I answered honestly. I said proof matters more than noise. If I had shouted earlier, it would have become a fight. By waiting, it became a fact. Then the moment of reversal arrived. The chair turned to Mr. Thompson and spoke in a voice that was calm but final. They listed the choices he had made. Removing controls without approval. Misrepresenting work. Erasing authorship. Ignoring warnings. The room did not need raised volume. Consequences came in simple words. He was relieved of his role that day. They said it clearly in front of everyone. They also said that leadership is not only about being seen. It is about being responsible for the truth. He did not argue anymore. He understood that the story he had tried to write had turned back on him. They turned to me next. They asked me to take charge of the system formally and lead its future design. They restored my credit in all records and announced it in the room. The offer was not a trophy. It was trust returned. I accepted not out of triumph, but because I had already been doing the work. People filed out quietly. Some touched my shoulder as they passed. Mr. Thompson did not look back as he left. The balance in that room had shifted, not by force, but by evidence and patience. When it was all done, I walked out of the building into the soft evening light. Cars moved. Trees shook in the wind. The world did not cheer or play music. Life went on, which somehow made the victory feel even more real. I sat on a bench outside and let the day settle inside me. I thought about the first night I built the model alone at my table. I thought about the moment I saw my name erased and the choice I made to stay quiet and prepare. Anger had come and gone like a wave. What stayed was something stronger. Discipline. Proof. Steady work. In the boardroom, I had returned the favor, but not the way he had done it. He erased my name. I restored the truth. That was enough. I did not need to hurt him. His own choices had already done that. I went home late that night and opened my notebook one more time. On the last page, I wrote one sentence in small, neat letters. Patience, backed by evidence, wins in the end. Then I closed the book and finally slept without weight on my chest.